So, this is going to be our spoiler talk, and
don't watch this if you haven't seen the movie yet.
yeah, we're putting this before our little logo and intro because we want you to take this seriously. This is a movie that you do not want to spoil yourself on. So see the big spoiler flashing in front of our faces? That's your warning. The title of the video said spoiler discussion in it. If you haven't seen it, why are you watching this? Don't do that to yourself. Go see the movie, come back, and check this out. And now, here's the intro.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Pop Pop Fizzle. I'm Heidi.
I'm Jeff, and we are back to have our spoiler discussion, you've been warned, for Avengers Infinity War. A movie literally 10 years in the making. We just left the theater, so our thoughts are very fresh.
Very fresh.
It's possible that they could change over time as we see it more, because we will see it more.
We will.
But all of this is just kind of fresh. We haven't made notes or anything. We're just going to talk off the top of our head because that's kind of how we roll here. In our non-spoiler discussion, if you haven't seen the movie, we suggest you jump down to that link. It'll be in the description. You can check out the non-spoiler review first. But that's the last warning you get, because now we talk spoilers.
Okay.
Yeah, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. The very first thing that was just right at the top of my head as I was leaving the theater is, this is somber. This is so somber. This is not like like any other Marvel movie that you're gonna walk out of going, yeah, that was awesome, because it was awesome.
Not because it wasn't awesome.
It was so awesome, but it was also horrible. Like the endings of many, many heroes that we have come to love over the past 10 years, and even over the course of the last 2.
Yeah.
So,
and really we knew going in, as most of you did, I'm sure, that a character or 2 or 3 or whatever would die. The movie's called Infinity War. You don't say the word war unless they're going to be major ramifications, because if you did that, then people would be like, well, why did you call it that, and that you wimped out on the whole thing.
Civil War.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Civil War, it was a war. It was a small scale war, but it was still a war.
Still a war. Okay.
There were consequences. Rhodey's having to stumble around in his weird legs.
Yes, this is so. But yeah, I mean, from start to finish, they did not pull any punches. With the very first on-screen death, OMG.
Yeah, and just to be clear, assuming you've seen this, you know that this was really a series of vignettes. We were hopping around from location to location to location. And what I was really impressed by was that I didn't feel like there was any filler. I didn't feel like there was any dull spaces where, okay, hurry up and get me back to the other thing. Now, there were moments where we left in a crucial moment that I was like, wait, what's going to happen? Yeah. But then whatever they cut to was also something I was like, oh, what's happening here? And it kept me in. It kept pulling me in.
The pacing was definitely great. Every location looked fantastic. I think there were at least like 25,000 people that worked just on visuals alone, so it was, amazing.
Okay, so let's break down our thoughts by kind of section. I mean, we can't cover the whole movie, but let's talk. Okay. Let's talk that opening scene.
Okay. So it picks up right where Thor Ragnarok left off, and
as a matter of fact, before the opening credits, before the Marvel logo is even done with its thing, you hear the distress signal being sent out from the ship that we last saw Thor and the Asgardians on.
And we knew from the end credits scene from Thor Ragnarok that they, got a surprise that was of a horrific proportion. So of course something horrible was going to be happening. So but we heard that. I found it really interesting. They had so when you did see the Marvel scroll, I don't believe there was much music, if any at all.
No,
there was none. And then, which always is really a great indicator of, you need to pay attention.
And it set the tone of something's wrong, something's off.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good way of getting people sort of on their their heels and like, oh, what's happening? What's going on here?
Yep.
And we come into the ship where last we saw the Asgardians to see it littered with bodies.
Dead bodies. We'll just make that very clear. And if they weren't, they were made so.
Yeah, and there was, quite a bit of dialogue from one of Thanos' henchmen, and we came upon the scene. I told Heidi on the way home that as that scene started, we saw Loki. He was really the first person that we saw that we recognized, and then as the camera panned over to see the back of Thanos, as I said, bodies littered all around. You could see Thor at his feet. What seemed to be Thor, and I told her until I really could kind of see the outfit, I didn't know for sure if I was looking at Thor. There was someone on the floor twitching. And I thought, oh no, are we really starting here? Like, is this really how this thing is going to start? And sure enough, it was. A lot of casualties, half of all the Asgardians gone, according to Thor. Later in the film, we see Heimdall make a sacrifice play, which is very much in keeping with his character.
We saw Loki being Loki. He was being Loki, but he was being loyal Loki. So
yeah, but that is Loki. We saw, and I think if you had an actor that was not the caliber of Tom Hiddleston, then those turns would seem
just wrong.
Yeah, disingenuous. That his. We've learned after watching 3 Thor films and seeing him in Avengers that for all of his bluster, he does care about certain people. He cared about his mother. He was devastated when his mother died, even though she was an adopted mother.
And it was kind of his fault too.
Yeah, and so there was some devastation there. He clearly in Thor Ragnarok felt the loss of Odin, and he felt moved by Odin calling him my son. He said, "My sons have come." So you saw that look on his face, and then even in Ragnarok, the fact that he even came to Asgard, knowing that he could have led those people away. He could have led Korg and all those guys. He could have led them someplace else, and instead he led them to Asgard and showed up to be Asgard's savior. But so these things, if in the hands of somebody else, maybe they wouldn't have been believable. But we've seen Tom Hiddleston playing that line where he's riding back and forth, and so as soon as he said in the film, just kill him.
Yeah, I knew that he didn't mean it.
Yeah, I knew he didn't mean it either. I just didn't know what his plan was.
Yeah, I don't think he did either.
Yeah, I think he was buying time, and I think he thought Thor's tough. This will give me a minute, and then I think he just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was buying time for the Hulk.
Maybe.
But yeah, so we got that moment, and then and we saw that he really does love his brother enough to stop. And then we saw Loki try to be Loki, try to be the trickster, and that didn't work out well.
No, it worked out horribly for him. So.
But again, on the other side of that equation, for 3 movies plus Avengers, we've seen that Thor, for all of the stuff that Loki's done to him, including pretending to be a snake and stabbing him
when they were 8,
for all of the stuff that Loki has clearly done to him wrong over the years, that he loves his brother. He still does. It always struck me in that original Avengers movie, when he's telling Loki, "We mourned you. Come home." And that's always sort of Thor's position. And in Ragnarok, he's kind of like, I just need to let him be Loki. I just need to let him, so he's eventually going to try to trick me. I'll trick him first, and we'll just go our separate ways. Yep. And that showed growth on Thor's part. But then we see in this film that Thor loves him because that loss he reacts to just as strongly as the loss of who he called his best friend, Heimdall. So we get that reaction, and it was just like, oh, this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
This is... letting Thor live is probably a mistake at this point. It's probably the biggest mistake that Thanos makes in this film.
I think so.
And then we move into, we hear Thanos give the order that there are 2 stones on Earth, and the Black Order needs to go and find them. And it's just you just know. I mean, it's just getting started, and you're already like, oh no. Yeah. Like because Thanos fights the Hulk. That was a great moment because we're used to seeing the Hulk so easily handle whatever happens, and you've got this sort of not mindless, but this sort of childish brute wailing on Thanos, and Thanos just being a warrior, just being a skilled, at combat.
Yeah. So to no effect.
Handing his butt to him.
Yeah, to no
easily.
effect on the for
now. Granted, he has the Power Stone at this point. So
yeah. So it's a little bit of an
so
unfair
Hulk's
contest.
a little outmatched. Heimdall's final sacrifice is to get Hulk out of there, to be the messenger to Earth for them to be ready.
He has the Space Stone too.
Yes.
At this point,
Thanos.
So yes. So
because he's taken the Tesseract from Loki.
Yeah.
So we get those moments, and then it's to Earth where we catch up with Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, and we see Doctor Strange and Wong, and we see very quickly we get sort of this introduction where things are starting to go wrong. Spider-Man knows that things are going wrong and leaves the school bus. Doctor Strange and Wong by this point have had Hulk literally fall through their ceiling, and have called Tony Stark via one of Doctor Strange's magical portals. So he's very quickly there, and we get their sort of response to this alien invasion, which is basically pack up your stuff and leave. This is our planet, and you're not welcome here.
Yeah, Earth's closed.
And then the fight ensues, and we get to see. I thought very quickly it was cool that we got so many different types of dealing with the issue. You had Wong and Strange standing together and doing their thing, and Tony suiting up and
in a
saying,
very cool way,
and saying, "Get that stone out of here." And Strange is like, "No, I'm facing this head on." And that sort of is something that we see throughout the film, is that Doctor Strange is not willing to go hide. He has a job to do, and so he's trying to kind of lead the way because he feels like it's his job, and Stark is always the guy who wants to call the shots unless Steve's there, and so he's calling the shots, and Strange isn't really listening, and it's a little bit combative, but that makes for great entertainment.
That's definitely just their introduction to one another.
Introduction to one another, but also. And that's true of every introduction that we get in this film. The characters that have not met each other before, having those first interactions, they all worked. And I think in the hands of lesser filmmakers,
it would have been
it wouldn't have. Yeah, and I think that speaks strongly of both the Russos, but also the cast. That the cast is able to play in this toy box and get along well with others and understand kind of how they all fit into this thing, and they fit well. So all the interactions.
Of course, nobody had the full script. So,
right.
So I, just jumping ahead, I don't think anybody knew, unless their own character was part of the end of everything, that who was actually going to go.
Yeah, that's possible for sure.
Yeah.
So it's impossible. It would be impossible for us to go scene by scene, and we wouldn't want to do that anyway. It would take forever. But we basically get different stories. So we follow Doctor Strange and Iron Man and Spider-Man into space. We follow Thor with the Guardians, and then they split off as he and Groot and Rocket go to forge a new weapon for Thor. Thor gets a new eyeball courtesy of Rocket, which is fine. Rocket and his collecting of body parts came in handy.
Yeah, I was like, of course he has an eyeball.
Why wouldn't he?
Why wouldn't? Yeah. But just him putting it in was pretty funny.
Yeah, and then and Groot wanting to see because this is going to be gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, which a teen boy would
It's
do.
as a teenager.
And then we get the rest of the Guardians going to they went to nowhere to try and find the Reality Stone before Thanos could get his hands on it, which didn't work out very well.
No, that worked out. Pretty much terribly. Everything that they tried to do was just not.
And then we got to see Wanda and Vision have developed their relationship, spending some time together, both of them getting away from their respective teams, without the knowledge of their respective teams.
Yeah, just a little bit of an escape from them.
Yeah, and we get to see that they really have feelings for each other. They really believe it works, and then of course they see what's going on in the world, and Vision says he has to leave. But it's already too late for that.
Yep.
The Black Order has arrived, and they're after the stone in his head, the Mind Stone, and they go after he and Wanda hardcore. Wanda again shows that she's tough.
Pretty darn powerful. Really powerful.
All of that was really impressive. You know, we know Vision's powerful. We've seen the stuff that he can do, but the fact that they were prepared for him. You know, he's after they stabbed him with Corvus Glaive's blade. He said, "I couldn't phase. It wouldn't let me phase or whatever." And so they were prepared to deal with him, and he was not prepared for what they were bringing to the party. So Wanda had to pull his bacon out of the fire a few times in that scene. And then one of my favorite moments before the sort of midway point was that fight where again she and Vision are just kind of on the run. They're just trying to stay alive. And we had this moment where Tony stopped short of calling Steve Rogers to ask for help. And then once he was off into space and whatever, that Bruce picked up the phone and saw Steve's number and said he had a call to make. But we didn't see the call, we didn't hear the call, we didn't know how any of that was going to go.
Right.
We just knew that he had done it. And then we have, you know, Wanda and Vision kind of running for their lives and barely making it. And then
there's a train.
Yeah, and then there's a train that goes by and you just see the silhouette of someone standing behind the train. And Approximate Midnight notices first. And then Corvus Glaive notices, and then Wanda even turns to look, and there's just this little smile on her face. All this makes me really emotional. It's been an emotional night, so forgive me for that. But yeah, that was one of those moments where when we saw Steve Rogers standing there, he catches Proxima Midnight's throne staff.
Yeah, he just
which she's been wrecking shop with, and he just plucks it out of the air and turns around and steps into the light when we see him. And that was just one of those moments like, because
Cap.
Yeah, because I think more than any of the other Avengers at this point, you know, I think the Avengers are really, I think what makes the cinematic universe strong is that they all sort of represent different ideals. You know, I said to you on the way home that Thor is kind of the lunkhead jock that has a heart of gold. Like, he's not always the smartest guy in the room, but he is dedicated and devoted to his friends, and he'll stand up to a bully, and he'll face something that seems impossible because it's the right thing to do. Right. That's his character. And Captain America is the character that inspires hope and inspires, you know, people to be better. And that's sort of that moment where I think Wanda's expression says, everything's okay.
Because Cap is here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the best intro, and of course that scene.
And he's not alone.
And he's not alone, so it was really great. So we saw Cap, and we're like, yeah! And then we saw, like...
Falcon come busting in,
yep,
and blasting away.
And then we saw...
Natasha slide in.
Yep, and then we saw... Was that it?
That was it.
I felt like we saw so much more. But it was good. That
was enough. That was enough.
That was enough to get those two away for at least... enough time for them to get out and go. So that was just one of the best scenes in there. Just seeing them just step into that fight.
Knowing that they've been basically on the run for 2 years since we saw them in Civil War, and there's even a remark about that. You know, we hadn't been staying in great hotels or whatever. It's from Falcon, and it's like, there's no telling what they've been through together, but they've stuck together.
Yeah. And
you see that in that moment, that they're a well-oiled machine. They come in and wreck shop on Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive, and they're not wusses. No. So that, you know, them coming in and sort of taking them off guard, and them, you know, they have to run away. Yeah, they got out of there. So that was awesome. I felt like all of the stuff with Thor and the Guardians worked for me. Yeah. I think partnering him with Groot and Rocket was the way to go. Yeah. Just because their personalities are so off from one another. That we had Teen Groot who had his head in the video game the whole time, like not paying attention. Thor
calling Rocket a rabbit the whole time, which is just hilarious.
And totally in keeping with Thor's character. I have seen, and I mentioned this to you, I've seen a few reviews, the non-spoiler variety, that mentioned that they thought some characters got short shrift, or that they thought some characters didn't feel entirely true to the last time that we saw them. And I have to say, I don't see that.
I don't buy
it. You know, if you want to say that Thor wasn't as funny as he was in Ragnarok, I would argue he has no reason to be. Nope. Things are so much darker, such a different situation than he was in Thor Ragnarok, that as bad as things were in Ragnarok, they seem much brighter than here. So I don't think he's in that same movie. It literally at the beginning of this movie, he loses the people he cares about most. And there's a conversation with he and Rocket where he basically admits that he has no one left.
Yeah.
You know, he's going back to Earth because his team is there. But as far as the people that he loves, there's nobody left. So I'm gonna go down, fight. You know, I'm gonna beat this guy, and if I can't.
And look at his age. He said he was 1,500 years old. We wondered. So,
yeah. And Rocket literally says, "What if you can't beat him?" And he says, "Well, then I guess
I have nothing else to lose."
I think that's a very different Thor than we had in Thor Ragnarok, because I think Thor in Thor Ragnarok was just like, I've got some stuff I got to overcome, but it's no big deal.
I'm saving my people.
This is just another fight, you know. And so there's room for levity there, and the situations provided levity, and Korg provided levity, and you had all these things that provided that. And this movie was not the space for that. He was still funny. He still had moments of genuine humor that was befitting of his character. It just wasn't situationally the same.
No.
And I think that could be true of anything. One of the complaints I saw was that Drax didn't have a lot to do. I don't think Drax had a lot to do because he was really outpowered here.
Yeah, but I mean, I felt like everything that Drax did had purpose in this.
Sure.
It was definitely. He wasn't filler, and he
wasn't just comic relief.
No.
That was part of it, and he was hilarious.
Yes.
As always, Dave Bautista. Hats off
good
to
job.
you. It's
Yeah.
excellent. But he also, you know, he still is on that mission that this man is responsible for my wife and my children being dead. Mm-hmm. I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
And that's an overriding sort of thing for him.
Yeah.
And then we get, of course, then the Doctor Strange, the team of Doctor Strange and Peter and Tony ending up on Titan and finding the other Guardians, the ones that didn't go with Thor, and having that sort of team up and getting those personalities playing against each other. And of course, Peter Quill being with anybody who's a normal person is not going to be great. I loved that Peter's pop culture reference. That Peter understood his Footloose reference and Spider-Man, yeah.
Because there are two Peters.
Sorry. Yeah, that Quill and Parker understood each other's sort of pop culture stuff enough to talk, and then that Tony just felt like everybody was so stupid, like just
stop it.
Why are you still talking? Yeah. Why are we still? Why is nobody listening?
I actually understood Quill's math, so
Yeah.
That was fun. That was a fun equation that he made up there.
Yes.
But loved where we got the odds. As Solo always says,
From Doctor Strange.
Never tell me the odds, but we got the odds.
They were not good.
But there was still a chance.
Yeah, I said that to you in the theater. So he's saying there's still a chance.
Yeah, so 14,600,000 and something outcomes that he reviewed. Of course, he was doing his thing for I don't know how long he was doing that.
Where they failed. And one where they succeeded.
So there's a chance.
Yeah. Now I think that one of the interesting sort of moments in this also, and this to me speaks again highly of the Russos, not to just continue piling praise on them, but it would have been easy to just kind of pluck people out of their situations that they've been in other movies. Mm-hmm. And have them deal with the situation and have no growth or follow through for anybody. But we had follow through because we had follow through on Thor and his relationship with Loki. That mattered. Mm-hmm. We had follow through with Peter Quill and Gamora's romance. Yeah. We had follow through with Stark and Pepper's engagement. Yeah. We had follow through with a lot of those sort of things, and even Wong and Strange, like their relationship has clearly changed and grown. They're much closer. They're so we saw that, and Wong wasn't in it a lot, but we got to see that. It was pretty clear that they had each other's backs. They understood each other. They were joking about money and food and whatever. Yeah. And had all that. So there were several things that was just like they're actually continuing their story. Yeah. There was much more to Gamora and Quill's relationship in this movie than we've had in the actual Guardians movies. And again, follow through with Peter and Stark, Spider-Man and Tony, with the whole being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Yeah. I can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood. Yep. That sometimes the stakes are so high that you need all people in, everybody in the pool together, and this was one of those times. In spite of Tony wanting to protect him, this wasn't one of those times. The whole seeing Wakanda again.
Yay!
Was very. Of course, I was waiting for that moment, because we knew that from the trailers that was going to happen.
Yep.
But seeing Wakanda, seeing the big Panther statue, getting to see all those characters again, getting to see them reconnect with Cap and introduced. I liked War Machine misleading Bruce about bowing.
That's pretty funny.
That was funny because Bruce is so just socially awkward anyway.
Yes, and then he's been off planet for a few years now, so
one of the things I thought was really kind of a brilliant thing was Bruce not being able to Hulk out.
Yeah.
Trying to, although it really looked like he was trying to go to the bathroom. I was kind of worried about that.
Or he was going to pop an artery.
Pop an artery. But yeah, I think that even though they didn't explain it in this movie, I think it was pretty obvious that the reason that the Hulk doesn't want to come out, the reason he keeps saying no every time he comes close, is that he's afraid.
Yeah.
He has the mentality of a toddler, but that toddler just got beaten up by the biggest school bully ever.
Yeah.
And I think that toddler is going, no, I'm not doing that again. I'm not coming out there again. And so where Bruce has the mentality of sometimes we have to face things that we know we can't win against because it's the right thing to do. Hulk doesn't have that. Hulk's a 2-year-old going, I'm not going back out there again. That's crazy. Yep. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out. But we got Bruce in the Hulkbuster armor, which was fun. So we got to see. Yeah,
we got to see him kind of play with that. And he's loving everything about it. He was excited to be.
He said it's like being the Hulk without
actually being that. I guess he didn't get to finish that sentence, which was pretty funny too. I loved. I said it to Jeff in the theater that they used the whole Star Wars dome from Phantom Menace, which I thought was just really hilarious.
It was kind of similar to that.
It was totally the same thing. Yeah. It was, except instead of droids, it was whatever those things were. And, it was just funny, but I mean, they worked it out the same way. So,
that was a devastating battle. I mean, right from the get go, they were overwhelmed and outnumbered, and it was looking bad. Thankfully, Thor's new weapon, Stormbreaker, has the ability to access the
Bifrost.
The Bifrost.
Hey,
I always want to call it the Rainbow Bridge because that's the comics thing.
Same thing. But hey, we got to see who Peter Dinklage was.
Yes.
So that was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. People were guessing that he was going to be the voice of Corvus Glaive. Not so.
Not so.
No, he was part of the solution to getting Thor another weapon.
Yep.
That was really cool, and it was cool seeing him be bigger than everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, he's a dwarf. I mean, because he said however many dwarves lived in this this thing.
Yes, but he was an Asgardian dwarf,
so he was still quite large.
Yes, and then the whole notion of, and I said this to you in the car on the way home, that Team Groot literally the whole time we see him is either mouthing off or he has his head in a video game or both. and yet when it comes time to forge the Stormbreaker, the new weapon, and the dwarf can't find the handle, Groot makes one, and you see the look on his face like things aren't gonna work if I don't do something.
Right.
And so it shows that maybe teens have their head buried in something. Maybe they don't seem like they're paying attention. Maybe they're overly sarcastic. Maybe whatever. Maybe difficult to deal with. But it doesn't mean that they're not paying attention. It doesn't mean that they don't care. It doesn't mean that they're not thinking about things. They just process differently. So he adds the handle to Stormbreaker, which I think is really a really cool bit.
Yeah.
And so then we see the Bifrost open in the middle of Wakanda, and Thor shows up and wrecks shop.
Yeah.
Forgot how much to Bruce's.
Yeah, he's like,
pleasure.
You guys are all screwed. It was awesome. He was so excited about that.
Yes. Yeah. And we get a little bit of conversation between Steve and Thor about his new haircut, and Thor says, "Yeah, you grew your beard like mine." Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I thought that was fun.
That was fun.
So it's been 2 years since they've seen each other.
Yeah.
So that's nice reunion.
Yeah.
Cool moment with Rocket and Winter Soldier.
Oh.
or White Wolf, whatever you're gonna call it.
Yeah. Whatever. It was, that was awesome.
That was a team up that made sense to me too.
Yeah.
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 Two grumpy guys that love big guns. It works.
Groot
also got a few licks in on the battlefield. That was good.
That was good.
And then we get to, and again, because we're looking at these vignettes, we get all this bouncing back and forth to, the Avengers on Titan that are with the Guardians trying to literally deal with Thanos and get that gauntlet away from him, which is not going well.
No.
Especially thanks to the death of Gamora.
Yeah.
The way that was handled, the appearance of the Red Skull.
Yeah,
when
surprise.
We weren't expecting to see him.
Yeah.
All of that was handled so well.
Oh my gosh.
Because they really took pains throughout the movie to show us that Thanos doesn't look at Gamora the way that he looks at his other children. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care that the Black Order is getting picked off by Avengers. He doesn't care.
Not even a little bit.
He doesn't mind dismantling Nebula on his own. But there's something about Gamora that's different, and was different from the start. And I think that's why it was important for us to see her as a little girl, and see that there was something that made him not his usual self in that moment.
Yeah.
And that was when that occurred to me, was when he turned her head and blocked her sight from seeing those people die.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
that was something that I was like, that was unexpected.
Yeah, that was...
Because I would think, being who he is, that he would be like, you need to see this. This needs to be something. This is a lesson that you need to learn. This is something that's what I was expecting. But instead he blocked her vision from it. And that to me was a sign that he cared about her in some way that didn't make sense.
Yeah. That we still,
so they really did a good job of selling us that through the movie, so that at the moment of decision, I bought it.
Oh, totally.
And as soon as she started talking, I thought, she doesn't know.
No.
After everything that he's put her through, she doesn't know. She doesn't think of that as love.
No.
But he does.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that he turned her head away, but also he brought her food. I thought you might be hungry. It's like a total dad thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And also I like that they continue again, and that continued relationship kept playing out things that have already happened. The relationship between Gamora and Nebula, which we left in a really sweet but sort of just kind of feeling this out thing at the end of the last Guardians movie, that we get to see that no, they really care about each other, to the point where I think Nebula, from her response and shaking her head, she was willing to die, as painful as he was making it.
Yeah.
She was willing to die to keep that stone out of his hands, but Gamora loved her so much she wasn't willing to let it happen. We see that because of how Thanos perceives everything, that he thinks it's mercy what he's doing.
Yeah, he really believes he's a hero.
Every good villain is the hero of their story, and that's true of every good story. Every good story needs a good villain. What made Killmonger such a good villain in Black Panther was that he believed that he was empowering people. He believed that what he was doing was the right thing for not just the people of Wakanda, but for African American people everywhere. Yeah. And he was wrong, but he believed that it was true and right. And that made him a great villain. It made him a villain that you could believe and that you could understand his relentless pursuit of that plan.
Yep.
The same is true with Thanos, and I would say of the two, by far Thanos is the more engaging villain.
Yeah.
Not just because of his connection to Gamora, not just because of his, again, thinking that it's mercy. The way that he describes what he does to Gamora is that, people were dying, they were starving, they were whatever, and I took care of that. Now you should go back there now. You should see how happy they are. They go to bed with full bellies, they look up at a beautiful sky, and she hears that as the words of a monster, and we do too, but he doesn't see that. He thinks he's doing something great. This is a lifelong dream for him that he's going to fulfill. And that's why in that moment, as sad as he is to end Gamora, he does what he thinks is right for everybody. And that's both frightening and kind of beautiful. But his sadness comes through, that performance, I thought was great. Yeah,
it was really good.
And then of course that plays a big part in things for the Avengers on Titan falling apart, because once Peter knows, and I think it's interesting because you see Nebula's reaction to that too. Once she figures it out, that it's like she's, instead of joining the fight, instead of jumping in to hold him down or get the gauntlet off, she just does nothing.
Yeah, because she's processing it too.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's really easy to undersell Karen Gillan's performance as Nebula in all of these movies because she underplays. A lot of the emotion is just ticks. It's just things. And so in that scene, it was just a little bit of the movement of her eyes and a little bit of welling of a tear in her eye, but not full on emotion at all.
Yes, I mean, she's mostly machine.
She's mostly machine, but there was still some of that there, and you saw that. And then Peter's response, as soon as that word was heard, as soon as she said Gamora, he means Gamora or whatever, then Stark immediately goes, no, keep it together, because he's the futurist. He sees things before they happen, and he makes them happen, and he's going, oh no. This is the unraveling of all this, because he's going to do something stupid now.
And he did.
I thought even Mantis, which I was not expecting to have a lot to do in this, I thought her moments in this movie were both funny and made sense.
Yeah.
Of course she would use her against Thanos, and you would wait until the last minute because she doesn't have a whole lot of physical power going on, and Thanos would have killed her easily, and they waited until they had his hands tied down, and she came into play.
But, I mean, he's such a strong force, such a strong personality that even though she was using every bit of her force, so much of her abilities that her hair was turning gray, he still wasn't out. Like, you saw her put anyone to sleep. He even put an Eternal to sleep, you know, or was it, whatever, Peter Quill's dad. Is he an Eternal? Something. Yeah. Whatever. But, someone as powerful as that.
Not an Eternal. They haven't introduced the Eternals yet.
Okay, but basically, someone as powerful as Peter's dad, and she just had to say sleep. And Celestial, thank you. And, and anyone else, she can easily just put them to sleep. But he was such a force that he still wasn't asleep. So, I mean, just so and of course he had the gauntlet, but still, so powerful.
Oh, and it was painful because they almost got the gauntlet. I mean, he literally, as Peter is the last one to continue pulling, he gets it off, and Thanos just grabs it by the
tip of the
cuff.
Yeah.
That was painful. Everything that follows that is painful.
Yes, just nothing but pain.
Yeah, and when he stabs Tony, by that point he's thrown so much attention, and you're seeing Tony expending nanites to keep forming things, and he's. Again, you have to hand it to Stark. He's so smart. He's doing things that should work over and over. He's locking down that gauntlet. He's, stopping him from moving. He's doing so many things at once and thinking through so many things and literally forming things as quickly as he can think of them. And it's just not enough.
To no effect.
And when he got stabbed, I thought, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I was terrified. Not because, at some point, Robert Downey Jr. is not going to be a part of this cinematic universe anymore. That's true of everybody. But I was just like, oh no, am I ready for this? Oh. Is this going to be what's going to happen? I felt the same way when Chris Evans grabbed the glove in protection of Wanda and Vision.
I thought he was just.
I thought we are going to see something bad here, and I'm not ready for this.
No.
Thankfully, at this point, none of those things have happened. Now, the surprise was that after Doctor Strange said, literally, you need to understand, if it comes down to me keeping this stone out of his hands or saving you or that boy, you'll both die, because I won't do that. And he did.
But we posited while we were in the car that
speculated,
posited.
Speculated.
That giving him the stones had to be part of that one
winning scenario.
Just that one. So.
And maybe Stark knew that. Maybe he told Stark that. I hope. Because I think there's got to be a thread of a plan there somewhere.
12%.
12% of a plan. Yeah. But I think that maybe, Strange's last words to Tony was to remind him, yes, this all looks bad, but don't lose it. Don't give up. Don't lose heart, because you still got work to do here.
That leads us into the death tally.
Yeah, and so then Thanos has all the stones that he needs except for the one that Vision had.
Mind Stone.
And we see him finally arrive
in
Wakanda. which they all, the way that was done with them sensing it before it happened.
Yeah, they just
both Vision feeling it because of the stone, but also everybody else
just like
something's up.
Like it's like you would feel like a storm coming. You wouldn't necessarily see it on the horizon. Of course, here in Texas, you see everything on the horizon.
But you feel it.
You feel it coming.
And so he shows up, and things go really badly.
Yep.
From that point forward.
Yep.
And since you've seen the movie, you know that. But I thought it was impressive that, some of the deaths that happened in this film happened quickly.
Yeah.
And unexpectedly. I can say that I wasn't shocked that Loki died in the beginning.
No,
but
I think we thought it could happen.
I thought that maybe he wouldn't make it through, but I kind of expected him to be have a little bit bigger part.
Yeah.
In this film, so the fact that he and Idris Elba's Heimdall were both done away with dispatched so easily.
Yeah, in the first 10 minutes.
And I mean, and Thor came pretty dang close to being toast there.
This is so.
But yeah, so those kinds of deaths were like, wow, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah.
And then there were moments that you just felt them coming.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I thought that when Tony was stabbed, that I was like, oh boy, we're going to get a really bad ending. Here comes the first of what I'm sure is going to be many. But instead we got Strange giving up the stone. And then we have that whole fight in Wakanda where, and I love too, and again it speaks to character, that, Captain America tells everybody stay alert and watch your backs, and then he's the first one to go running forward. Because the one thing that Captain America would know more than anybody else there, after what he's heard and what he's seen, is that he doesn't have a prayer.
Yeah.
But it does not stop his determination to do what's right. And I think that is what makes that character so good, and has from the start.
Yeah.
If you would have told me, because I read Captain America comics growing up, if you would have told me that I could see a representation of Captain America on the screen that would matter to me enough that his, seeing him embodied on the big screen could even have the potential of making me emotional, I would have thought, you're crazy. It's Captain America. He's cheesy, whatever.
Oh, he's awesome.
But the thing is, and we know from past experience, that it's not an easy thing to make Captain America work. Not just to make him work, but to make him work in modern times with modern sensibilities, to make him still feel like you would follow him anywhere.
Yeah, and even though he knows he doesn't have any chance, he can do this all day.
Yeah, and so not surprising that he's the first one to run forward. Pretty dang inspiring, which is what his character is all about. And then we get everybody else joining in the fray, only to get batted aside like dolls.
Yeah, that was not
thankfully, no bone crunching, no whatever, but just he doesn't need to bother with them.
Yeah.
Thanos literally, it's all no bother.
Yeah. And
then we have one of the first sort of moments of true badness, which was the whole thing, and we didn't get, and this to me is hopeful, is that we saw Shuri defending Vision while she was and the guards defending him while she was trying to finish the work that she was doing,
trying to remove the stone so that they could just destroy it and keep Vision.
Right. We don't know what else she did there, so I feel like there's some hope there. Maybe she duplicated his consciousness, maybe something like that happened. I think Shuri's smart. Clearly, she's probably one of the smarter characters in the Marvel universe.
She telling Bruce Banner he did his best.
Yeah.
It was just funny.
And then we get, so my hope is, and we didn't see what happened to her.
No.
So I'm hoping that there's goodness to follow there.
Yeah.
In the next movie. But then we get basically Vision telling Wanda, listen, you're the only person that can do this. You got to pull this thing out of me. You got to destroy it. And she's afraid because pulling it out may mean that he's not there anymore. It may mean something bad. And it does. It does mean something bad. And again, when it comes to that whole power level thing, the fact that she's able to hold back Thanos
with one hand,
while she's doing that with Vision on the other, and that now Thanos is making gaining headway, yeah, but slowly, and he's surprised that she's holding him back.
Yeah.
Again, and also surprised that Steve Rogers is able to hold his mitt back and just with pure willpower before he bats him aside.
Yeah.
And he, there's a little bit of like confusion, like who is this guy?
Who's this human?
What is this all about?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Wanda's power level just off the chart. Pulling the stone out and destroying it also destroys Vision. And so I thought, oh, is this how the next movie is going to be set up? Is there something else? Is there something we don't know? Is there something? And you said you figured it out before.
Oh yeah, like as soon as she destroyed him, she didn't have. I mean, there was a big explosion. She was knocked off balance. Thanos made his way over, and I was like, he just got the time stone. Of course, he's not going to let something like the stone being destroyed stop him. He's just going to use it.
And I liked it when he used it. It looked like the spell. It looked like Doctor Strange using it. It looked the same way. So it was just the stone doing it.
Yeah. So I knew that was going to happen. So Wanda had to see Vision die twice.
Yeah. And the second time, not pretty.
No, that was
at
awful.
All.
Yeah, because
Thanos just sunk his fingers into his head and pulled it free.
Yeah, he was not at all gentle.
All the color leaving Vision's body,
and just reminding us that he was just a robot.
That was devastating to me, and then Vision's a machine, and I knew that.
Yeah,
but it was still a devastating thing to see.
Yeah, just not good. But I mean,
a horrible thing for Wanda to have to see.
Yeah, so she made him explode once, and then he died like that a second time.
Yeah. And then we have the arrival of Thor, which made me wonder, where was Thor before this?
Getting his... He was out on the... I don't know.
When they were out on the battlefield, yes, and all that was happening. It's like, okay, Steve called all Avengers to my position. It's like, if Thor would have arrived a little earlier, that might have gone differently.
Yeah,
But he shows up and puts the axe through Thanos. And
Thanos gives him a little bit of advice.
And what I thought was great was just him saying, I told you that I'd kill you. And then he's literally holding Thanos' shoulder and pushing the axe, which was like, that's pretty brutal. Like, we haven't seen Thor quite that brutal. I mean, we've seen him kill like frost giants and stuff, but it's like, yeah, he's not pulling any punches. He's done with Thanos. Mm-hmm. And then Thanos, gives him a bit of advice. Which is that he should have taken his head, should have gone for the head.
Yeah, and then it wasn't the direct ending of the movie, but you called it because you know the story.
Yeah, and I said, and I had said to Heidi before, it literally could end with him snapping. He didn't snap, but he just...
He snapped. He snapped the gauntlet.
Okay. Gotcha.
He snapped. I didn't know that those fingers would move.
I was so geared up and freaked out by that point.
He snapped the gauntlet while Thor was...
I remember he snapped before when he was talking about it, and Gamora snapped when she was talking about it, but I missed that one.
No.
And then the screen went white for a second. Mm-hmm. And then we find, Thor saying, what did you do?
Yeah. And then we see it all. Like, if we could do it, we'd do it like the little tally at the bottom of the screen, but really
honestly, it would be easier to tell you who lived than who died. But
and you should know this because you've seen the movie.
Yes.
But yeah, so we were talking about on the way home, just a strange amalgamation of people left to be Earth's defenders, basically.
Yeah. And I said to Heidi on the way home, I'm an emotional guy. This is just me being upfront with you. I cry a lot at different movies and different things, and so I expected to be extremely emotional to this. And I was, but just in a roller coastery kind of way, back and forth, and being tense and being excited and laughing and whatever, and I was all over the place. But even as far as like losing Loki and Heimdall and Vision at that point, I was still okay. I was still holding it together. And then people started disappearing.
I mean, Bucky just was like, that was, I didn't know how they were going to do it, but he's like, hey, Steve. And it was like...
And then literally Steve just had to watch him fall apart.
Disintegrate.
Yeah.
And then we saw all the others, and so...
But the worst, and I was telling Heidi, I was holding it together. I was doing okay.
No, it was not good.
Until it got to Peter Parker.
Yeah.
I was surprised that they did it because he's such a new character, and I mean, I'm not saying that means he's not coming back, but I was surprised that they went there because of a new character, but his dialogue there and his acting there
was just it was tremendous. It was like kudos.
And traumatic.
Yeah,
tremendous and traumatic.
Yes, very much so. That was the worst of all of them. Just to see, I mean, he was so scared.
Scared and
sorry
because he felt like he had let Tony down and probably let a lot of people down. I'm sure he was thinking of his aunt and his friends and whatever else. But for Tony, that being so personal too, and having to see someone he's basically treated like a son, even though he doesn't have one. Yeah. And I really think that that's what put that idea in his head. I think that his connection with Peter was why he's talking to her about, you know, maybe we should have one. I had a dream, you know, or whatever. That, you know, so we had seen that picture of Tony sitting there looking at his hands and whatever, and I was like, oh, something bad happened there. Something really bad happens right before that scene, and sure enough, it's Peter literally just disintegrating in his arms.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. And then Strange, he disappeared. Drax and Mantis, and so all that's left Peter Quill. So all that's left on Titan is Nebula and Tony Stark, which is just a weird combo.
It's an odd duo, but I'm looking forward to seeing them together.
That should be like a road trip comedy, right?
And then in Wakanda,
yeah,
we lose Bucky and
Groot.
Wanda.
Wanda looked happy, actually.
Yeah, I think Wanda was okay with not being there because she was devastated.
Yeah, but Groot.
Black Panther.
Oh my gosh! Like, okay, so we know there's going to be a Black Panther 2, but if we
could be Shuri.
Yeah, if we look at comics.
I don't think it will be. I think there's a solution to all of this waiting. We may not get everybody back, but I think we'll get some back. And so the question is how. They don't really give us any sort of answers to that question in this movie, which I wouldn't expect them to. This very much was a Empire Strikes Back sort of thing that we ended with loss and devastation. And I told Heidi before, you know, we didn't, you know, we knew that there was an end credit scene, so we waited.
As did most of the theater.
Yay! But I told Heidi it was a good, good character thing. We saw Falcon die.
Oh yeah.
Bruce was okay. We saw, Groot and some of the others. So. Excuse me.
I'm trying to think who else. Did we see the other chief?
M'Baku?
Yeah.
Or M'Baku?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think we saw him reacting.
He was
to everybody.
He was reacting, yeah. Okay.
But I told Heidi it was such a good character thing because, you know, Natasha has seen everything.
Oh.
And we see her looking like she just wants to throw up. Like she just, I mean, her expression over Steve looking down at Vision, and I mean, Vision's a machine. Mm-hmm. But her looking down at him and knowing everything that's happening, she just looked like she wanted to vomit. And Steve Rogers they've let us know over all these movies that he's the guy that inspires people to, we don't have a prayer, but we're going to go anyway. We may not have a shot, but we're going in anywhere. We're not going to stop until we find a way. And to see him devastated to the point of sitting down and just saying, oh God, was like the worst thing ever. Because if Steve Rogers doesn't know how to process or what to do next, then who does? Nobody. That's the answer. Nobody. So just that moment was devastating.
Yeah, that was
to end on.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so we end with Steve looking down at his hands that Peter just disintegrated in, and not knowing what to do next. And Tony, sorry, and then Steve kneeling on, you know, sitting down next to Vision and just saying, "Oh God!" And it's like, you know, these are the people that we count on to have a plan
to lead,
to step up and go, "We're still fighting." And they don't know what to do, and that's just a really devastating place to leave it.
Yeah.
And then we get to the end credit scene,
which, you know, I was so happy to see
Maria Hill and Nick Fury.
So glad to see that. Wish that Nick Fury could have seen Thor with one eye, just because they can just like, you know.
Right.
But that didn't happen. That's okay.
But we get to see them driving when a car unexpectedly swerves in front of them because people are starting to disappear. Yeah. See a helicopter crash into a building. Clearly, worldwide, this is a problem.
Yeah.
Not, you know, universe-wide obviously too, but just as far as what's going to happen on Earth, half the people disappearing is a
That's going to be a big deal.
Big problem. Planes falling out of the skies, helicopters, cars, you name it. Lots of bad stuff happening. So we see Fury and Hill stopping to see if they're okay.
No people.
And there's no people. And then she turns around and realizes that something's happening to her. And as Nick sees it start to happen, he pushes back some other people that are starting to disappear and pulls out a device and is trying to get off a message as he starts to disappear.
And of course, unfortunately, we don't get to hear the Samuel L. Jackson classic line, so oh well.
Right, which wouldn't have been in a Marvel movie anyway.
No.
But as he drops the communicator, we see that it's sending a message. And because of the way the communicator looked, I thought, that looks like something that would be sending a signal in space. My first thought was actually Coulson. But my second thought, once I actually saw the thing, was like, that looks like it could be something that would send a message into space. And then sure enough, we get the little tease of the Captain Marvel symbol. We know that her movie is taking place in the 1990s. So we're going to see Coulson and Nick Fury in the past.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that there'll be some setup there for what that signal is and where she's been and all of that, so that we'll get her in this next movie.
I wonder, though, like, maybe, like, we don't know, because you had asked the question, where's she been all this time? And I'm wondering maybe if that thing was calling her across time.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. So that's so, you know, at the end of her movie, we may see her like looking down at something. Hey, I'm getting a message, and like look at Fury and goes from you.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
That would be awesome. Possible. That would be so awesome. Good. That would be a good payoff.
And then you know, that sort of. I was gonna say they also, you know, knowing what movies are coming, they also let us know why Ant-Man was not in this movie.
Yeah, I was just about to say we thankfully got a good reason why Ant-Man and Hawkeye were not in this movie.
Because they have families
and they were on house arrest. Yeah. So that
they took a deal that got them house arrest.
Yeah, so that was fine. And but the thing is, we were talking in the car, of course, because we couldn't help talking in the car about this. That they probably wouldn't have been that much help. Although I posited that Ant-Man could have been helpful as giant man, kind of stepping around on the things that were fighting in Wakanda, or he could have shrunk to really tiny and gotten Thanos' ear and then gotten big. That might have been helpful, but I don't. Just from everything that was happening, I don't think he would have gotten that opportunity. Right. So those two would have wound up dead.
But plenty of opportunity for them to show up in the movie that's coming next. Yeah. Because they film these back to back, we only have to wait a year, which seems horrible to me.
But we are going to get the Ant-Man movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. We're going to get that movie. We'll get Captain Marvel. And then we were also mentioning in the car that we were kind of disappointed that there were no mentions of the Defenders in New York City, especially since a lot of this did take place in New York City. That we didn't get like even just like a, hey, what about that freakishly strong girl or whatever. We didn't get any mention of them. However, we did see an interview with the Russo saying that, you know, they kind of looked at that and like possibly including them.
And they had so many characters in this one that it was too.
But the next one, we have a serious lack of superheroes. So I want to believe that they may at least mention that, you know, that they're trying to keep things together, places or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's something as simple as start going, I recruited a couple of people in New York that are gonna mind things at home.
They're gonna manage stuff there.
Yeah. I mean, even something like that would be fine.
Yeah.
I would love to see. I would love to see Coulson reveal himself to be alive and to deal with.
That would be so awesome. Okay, and yes, we were talking about the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. connection. So we know that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got, you know, moved around because of Inhumans. We know that the opening date of this Infinity War was moved up. So, but we also
not sure how they're gonna mesh.
We don't know how that's going to mesh, but there's no way that it can't. But we were saying that maybe it's not a terrible thing if Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is just a couple weeks out, because it's going to take that long for a lot of people to see this movie. So it may not be a terrible thing to see how it connects, you know, in a week or two. So not necessarily this episode that's coming up tomorrow, but maybe something else down the line.
Right, and given some of what's going on in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
it's entirely possible.
If a few of them were to disappear and then come back, it could solve some problems for some people that are facing bad things.
Yeah, definitely.
If they're put back in better condition.
Yeah.
You know, so there's that possibility.
This is so.
But all in all, I mean, this was a tremendous feat for not only the filmmakers, but for the cast and the crew and all the people behind the scenes that made this thing happen. Now,
so much work, but so well done.
I saw a few people in non-spoiler reviews say that they felt like some of the CG on some of the Black Order wasn't the greatest. I would argue that they're aliens.
So it doesn't really matter.
And none of them needed to be as expressive as Thanos. So I don't look at creatures that are not human and go, oh, that looks fake, because I don't know what they would look like in their own environment. Yeah, so that didn't bother me. I don't really have any cons for this movie, other than the fact that it devastated me emotionally.
Yeah. So so we mentioned in our non-spoiler review that we were thinking about, bringing our smaller children to this movie, and there's just so much death and destruction that we feel like it would be better
for characters that they've come to care about.
Yeah,
and
we know that this can't be the end of the line for all of these characters, so we know that another one's coming out next year, and so we felt like it might be a better idea for them to see both of them back to back. So like when the other one comes out, we'll have them see this one maybe, or we'll see the other one and then make sure that they'll be able to see both of them together so that they can see that. So that's just, we're just...
Well, this one will be out on Blu-ray, I'm sure, by the time the next one comes out.
Yeah, but we still need to see the next one and make sure it's still okay for them to see.
Right.
So just...
But yeah, so our advice to you would be, if you have small children, you know your children better than anyone else. Since you've watched the spoiler discussion, you've obviously seen the movie. So you make that call for yourself, whether or not you think your children are able to see this without it being too traumatizing or too upsetting. Yeah. That's your call to make as a parent. But, for us... the call is, it's probably a little too much for R2 to process.
Yeah,
so you make that call for yourself and for your own kids. Mm-hmm. But we both, as we said in our non-spoiler review, love this movie.
Yeah,
we couldn't rate it high enough.
We both blasted right through our scale because it is so worth going to see, to see right away, and so worth going to see right now, because there are going to be so many people who are going to want to talk about this with you. Yeah,
and that's the thing, encourage anybody in your sphere that hasn't seen this movie yet to go see it before it gets spoiled for them, because that's really the best way to see this thing.
Yeah, I'm so glad we avoided all the spoilers for this. It was definitely worth seeing every second, fresh. So it was...
Any closing thoughts?
1 year, 1 year goes fast, but for this movie, it's going to be slow. So
yeah. Well, it's 4:30 in the morning for us here as we film this, so we are going to call it a night. But yeah, for my final thoughts, I'm just going to say, I can't recommend this movie highly enough, and really, if your friends, family haven't seen it, push them to do that. Everybody's going to be talking about this tomorrow morning, not even Monday morning. Yeah, tomorrow morning, people are going to be talking about this. And it's going to be spoiled pretty easily. And hopefully most people know not to do that, but there are always some that do, that let things slip. So please do your best to encourage people to go see it. We're interested to know what you thought about the movie.
Let us know.
Since clearly you saw it, you wouldn't be watching this spoiler discussion. So let us know in the comments down below. And if you like this video,
hit that thumbs up.
That's right. Consider subscribing to the channel. We love to do these kind of things where we just ramble and are goofy for you. So we'll do more of those. We do trailer reactions and all kinds of other things. But you subscribing to the channel really helps us to continue in that. And if you're already subscribed, click that bell icon so you can be notified the next time we do one of these.
All right, until next time.
Bye.